Hello everyone and welcome to another Sims 2 speed build video. Today I am bringing to you another double feature in downtown today. I am renovating the Arisha family dining lot and the corner shops community lot. So yeah, another combined feature. I'm starting off with the Arisha family dining lot. As you can see here, I've basically stripped the exterior of the building, and the kind of the aesthetics that I wanted to go for with this build was a more or less of a chain restaurant, so very much inspired by McDonald's, to put it quite bluntly, and more or less in a way that is kind of like a modern McDonald's. I feel like they do all tend to look the same no matter where you go in the world. I mean, I looked at McDonald's reference pictures and I have no idea which country they were in, probably in the United States, but they look very much like the McDonald's restaurants, the new McDonald's restaurants that kind of pop up in my country. So it seems to be just a general kind of theme of, I guess McDonald's fast food chain stores, these kind of sleek, modern, very minimalist designs on both the interior and the exterior. So I kind of wanted to emulate that in this build here. So yeah, pretty much I started off the build by working on the outside or the exterior with these beams here. And these are a 4:2 conversion. I think they came with City Living, these particular ones, but there's also another skinnier set of beams that came with Get Famous. And these objects here are one of the very few 4:2 items that I've kept in my game. I just feel like they can add a lot of visual interest into builds, and they are very modern looking, and for me they're a nice to have. So they were one of the exceptions that I was willing to make when I was cleaning out my custom content and removing a lot of 4:2 conversions. And I feel like, even though they are 4:2 conversions, they still look like they fit into the game quite seamlessly. So yeah, basically the exterior here is, it ends up going through a pretty big change. More or less the shape of the building stays the same, but I did add an extra section out back to make way for some bathrooms. And that way there was more space for dining on the inside as well. So because I wanted this to kind of look like a chain restaurant, I put, a lot of signs around the place. So that kind of the university Greek house letter, that particular one that I'm using there, kind of looks like it could be an O. So yeah, I chose that one and went with the gold coloration. And yeah, that was kind of just, trying to bring in some Macca's vibes there. But yeah, it's very much a standard, I guess, restaurant. What I did want to do, because it was a family dining, it was called a family restaurant, I did want to keep a playground. And so, I mean, a part of, I guess, fast food chain restaurants, they do tend to have an area for children to play. I don't know if it's exclusively McDonald's. Come to think of it, I don't really know of any other, not around me anyway, or where I live, any other restaurants or family restaurants, or chain restaurants, fast food restaurants, or anything like that have playgrounds on them. The only one that I can think of offhand is McDonald's. But anyway, I wanted to have keep the kind of the family vibes and maintain a playground. But it's an indoor playground now, so the playground on the original lot was outside, so I decided to bring that in the restaurant itself. And yeah, we'll see that when I start working on the interior, but I'm still working on the exterior here, and going with a big parking lot out the back, as I've done with a couple of my other strange or downtown builds, just to kind of make the neighborhood look a little more seamless. And yeah, so I've just gone ahead and placed a big parking lot out back. What I do need to do with the hostel is just make a small edit to the rear of the building, because you can see, you might catch glimpses of it, but there is like an alleyway outside at the back of the hostel, and it doesn't quite line up with the parking lot, so I'm just going to have to go back into the hostel and edit the rear of that building so that it looks like it fits in better with the parking lot behind Oresha's here. So now I'm working on the interior, and I'm just playing around with some playground equipment just to see kind of what I actually want to have in the playground, what kind of looks ideal for an indoor playground. So I chose the tower here. The I can't quite remember what it's called, and then the other playground thing that I can't even remember the name of it. But that's there too, the one that they swing around. So with these two items, and then a little bit later on, or actually towards the end of the build, I place some of those, like, oh my gosh, I just can't think of the name of playground stuff at the moment, but the ones that toddlers can use, so those little kind of swing or bouncy things that they can toddlers can ride on. Even though it's very unlikely that toddlers would come to this lot, I don't even think toddlers can come to community lots. But they're there anyway. I guess they make it look, like a more exciting playground. So I put those in there in the end. But like with my with my Command Go and what was the other build that I did? Command Go and Midnight Flows. I kind of did the initial build and then kind of had a sleep on it and then came back and did a little few extra things. Not drastic. I feel like nowhere near as drastic as what I did with Command Go and Midnight Flows. But with Arisha's definitely, I came and did a few more bits and pieces after sleeping on the build and giving it a fresh pair of eyes. So there's a few changes here and there that I do towards the very end after the build's been completed. But I've done the kind of the host station, and I put that behind a counter to make it look more like a fast food place, so that Sims actually have to go up to the counter and place their order. But of course they'll just go up to the counter, the host will greet them and then take them to their seats. But I mean, it looks like it belongs in a fast food place, so I wasn't that bothered by the actual practicality of it. Now for the kind of the color schemes in the interior, because I was trying to mimic Macca's in some way, I did want to have some yellow, and of course I chose the gold sign for the Arisha symbol there. I chose the gold color, so I brought in some yellow as well to kind of complement that, and I'm bringing these beams inside as well to give it a more modern feel, and then going with these kind of concrete slab or tiles. I feel like they looked quite nice with the rest of the wood tones especially, and just going in and replacing the furniture with some more modern furniture. And of course they've got, of course I put this big kind of what is it? It's like a stage in the middle here, but I just wanted to fill in some empty space, and so I kind of made that into like a little planter. I've done that before in a previous restaurant that I built, and it ended up looking quite good, so I thought I'd bring it into this one here. I wasn't too keen on having plants inside to start with, but really it was kind of the only thing that looked good in this space here, so yeah, I just kept that. And yeah, so this one didn't really take me that long to do. In fact, the speed build it came in at around maybe 12 minutes, I think, for Oresha's. And then that's why I decided to kind of have multiple, a couple of renos in this one video rather than just, a 10-minute for Oresha's, or not even, I don't know, 10-15 minutes for Oresha's, and then going on and doing another one for the corner shops. I just decided, may as well just have two in one. And yeah, this one, didn't take me long to put together at all. As you can see, I'm nearly done, really. It was super, super quick. The kitchen, again, like my last community lot that I did, or at least with Midnight Flows, I said I wasn't going to spend too much time on the kitchen, and I don't really in this one either. Kitchens aren't really that important to me. Particularly if the community lot isn't owned. I mean, I'm not going to really spend much time in the kitchen or looking at the kitchen, so it doesn't really need to be that exciting to me. But given that the kitchen was open, so it was open to the dining space, so you can actually see into the kitchen. I did want it to look somewhat detailed, but otherwise I wouldn't really go into this much detail normally. Even this is kind of overstepping my my creativity for community lot kitchens. Next, moving on to the bathrooms here, and these are just very simple, but again, keeping the color schemes very modern. And yeah, so going with, I think I go with like a beige kind of tile here on the floor, and then some black concrete slabs, I believe. And there they are. And again, with just the normal bathroom staples, so some toilets and some sinks. Although I did change up the counters because I feel I've used these counters in the hostel, and so I thought maybe I should go with something a little nicer. And I went to the safe mom bench tops there. So yeah, looking good, looking very modern and sleek. Now, I did kind of get to the point in the build where I was like, okay, well, they have somewhere to eat, the kids have somewhere to play, but there isn't really anything for the adults to do. I mean, they can kind of sit here in the play area and watch their children play on the playground equipment, but I did want somewhere else or something for the adults to do as well. So, really, the only thing I know this place had the My Shuno game before, but I kind of want to do something else with that. I don't really understand the whole point of the My Shuno game. It's not the most interesting thing to play with, but I do want to have it somewhere. In this lot, it didn't really make sense anymore because it's kind of like a bingo game, and this is a family restaurant, so I did take it out, but I just put a photo booth. I mean, really, if my Sims are going downtown, I do want to have a photo booth somewhere for them to kind of, take pictures, have fun in, and of course, if, things happen to go that way, there is somewhere for them to, um, have a little woohoo or something fun like that. I don't know. But yeah, so that will come in just a minute. I'm just kind of going around and placing in some additional lights, just making sure everything looks good on the exterior and well lit up. And then I pop back inside and place the photo booth. Of course, I couldn't quite decide where I wanted to put it. I did want to have it somewhere kind of hidden away. It seemed a little too big for the corridor, but I just managed to slot it in there somehow. I also placed those toddler things in the playground. I also placed some music, and then, of course, some obligatory trash. And I just added a few more neon lights in the space as well, just to make it look a little more interesting. So moving on to the before and after pictures. So here's the before, one angle of the interior, and here's the after. And moving on to the other angle of the restaurant, or another angle, and the new after. And now we're going to look at oh, here's the playground. Yeah, so just a couple of shots of the playground from the interior. So it has a super high ceiling, of course, because it is, it does have the tower piece in it. So I needed to make sure that was could be accommodated adequately. And now, yeah, here's looking at the rear of the building, and of course moving on to the front. And look at that, nice and sleek, and it almost looks like a McDonald's. All right, so now moving on to the corner shops, and the idea that I had for this lot was to keep the kind of the courtyard thing that's in between the buildings, and turn that more into a kind of like a night market inspired build. So it's shops at the moment, but I mean, of course, all these shops here don't really have a unique purpose. Sims can kind of, like if I got rid of these shops, it wouldn't be the end of the world. My Sims would still be able to purchase the items that this place sold elsewhere. So I wasn't really interested in maintaining the kind of the shops aspect of the community lot, but I did want to have something interesting and unique for my Sims to do. And so a night market just kind of screamed out to me, especially with the courtyard aspect and, putting some lights and some food stalls. Of course, we don't have food stalls in The Sims 2. The only thing, the closest thing that we do have are those, like, I don't even know, like those little restaurant things, or the food stands. that came with Bon Voyage. So I wanted to incorporate those in the courtyard and have like a little music space. And in a way, this build does end up being kind of music oriented because I took out the shops. I have these buildings with interiors that I didn't really want to utilize in any way. I wanted the focus to be more on the courtyard, but it just felt a little silly for me to kind of have these empty shells surrounding a night market. So I did turn one of the buildings, or at least the ground floor anyway, into like a little showroom with a piano. But we'll see that anyway. What I'm doing, see that later on. But anyway, what I'm doing now is just kind of working out what I want the shells to look like. And in this part of downtown, I've got a couple of different building styles that are kind of meeting or, coming together. So this is more or less where this building is placed, and it's more or less placed in an area of downtown where my buildings are more Art Deco styled, and also there's a couple of buildings that are more kind of New Orleans style. And so this slot here, I wanted the buildings to kind of reflect the merging of the two different styles. So one of the buildings, or the building that I'm working on here, is going to be more in the New Orleans style. So with the terraced kind of balconies and the wrought iron fencing that surrounds them, and the windows with the shutters, and of course you'll see all that come together. I'm just kind of working on the shape of the build right now. And then one of the other buildings is in an Art Deco style, but the shell that I've put down for the Art Deco build, I mean, you could kind of tell that it is going in an Art Deco direction, but I do rebuild that shell from scratch again, just because it wasn't really working with the style that I wanted to. It just ended up being way too complicated, so I just toned it down a little bit. And then the third building is kind of just the one with the cornice on it at the moment, but I do get rid of the cornice a bit later on. That building is kind of just like a typical kind of, I don't know, Edwardian commercial looking building. I've got a couple of those in downtown at the moment, but of course I built those before I actually started doing speed builds, so you won't see them being built, unfortunately, but you may see them in the gameplay videos if you are interested in checking them out. I haven't actually visited them on stream yet, but I will at some point, so yeah, keep an eye out for those. With this building here, so initially it was on a foundation, and that actually proved to be really difficult because, if I was playing in the courtyard, then the building to the left, this building here, looked like just I was in a foundation, like looking at a foundation pretty much. And so I wanted all the buildings to be visible at the same time. So I ended up taking it off the foundation, so pretty much rebuilding the shell entirely again, but I don't show that I completely cut all of that out. But in that process, I did decide to make the building one story taller. So at the moment it's 2 stories, but then yeah, after rebuilding this shell, I thought, why not go big or go home? So I went big and I added an extra story, and I just feel like that adds a little extra to the build overall. But yeah, I'm still just playing around with how I want the build to look overall and figuring out where I want the entrances to be. So I have 3 entrances to this building, and that building actually serves as the kind of the piano concert room, I guess you could say, or showroom. It also has the bathrooms in it. And the Art Deco build has a bar in it, and then this kind of Edwardian commercial building doesn't really have any particular purpose other than to house 2 of the food stands there. So I played around with different wall textures for all the buildings, really. With this building here, I initially chose a brick, and I did like the brick, but I was looking at some reference pictures and I found a building that had this nice pink kind of stucco on it, and with some nice shuttered windows. So I decided to go with that instead. So you can see I've already added that pink stucco to the exterior. The fence or the railing around this building, I do change it because as it stands right now, and I think it becomes worse when I put the 3rd floor on the building, it just looked way too busy, and honestly, I just wasn't really liking it. You could barely see the windows with the railing that I'm using now. And yeah, when I put the third floor on, you can see I'm playing around with some awnings here, but they don't really go to plan. And how, and this is where I'm, yeah, well, now I've put the third floor on. So we're at that stage of the build. So you can see it looks really busy. And yeah, when I tried putting some windows on, you couldn't really see the windows or the detailing of the windows. So I switched out this railing here to an add-on that I have for the Maxis route iron fence, and I actually use that in the Goth house. So I used it again here, because yeah, at the moment, just way too much going on. So you can see I'm putting in these windows, and you can barely see the detail of the windows. But a good thing about me having removed the foundation is now that when I'm playing on the ground floor and playing in the courtyard, I can see, inside the buildings too, or inside this building in particular that was on a foundation before. So now I don't have that issue. But now I'm just, going ahead and placing on some windows. And yeah, I quite like the blue, how it kind of goes with the pink. And then, I was taking a look at the building and then I was like, oh, wow, I can't really see anything. So quickly went and switched up the railing here. And I feel like this looks heaps better. And while the other fence is really cool, and I believe that one is actually a Sims 3 conversion. I can't remember exactly where it came from, though. I believe it might have been for one of the Sims 3 store sets that was for a Sims anniversary. I think it's kind of paying homage to some Sims 1 content because I believe that particular fence was in the Sims 1. And it might be free on the Sims 3. I'm not 100% sure, but it has been converted to the Sims 2, as you can see, because I've been using it. So yeah, that's way too much of an explanation on some random obscure fence from The Sims 3. But I'm just moving on to again onto the courtyard and placing in a fountain and then putting in a stage for some instruments where Sims can kind of, do some little performances next to people who are eating their food. And I had a bit of trouble with this stage because initially I used the stage tool and then I wanted an awning to be on top of it so that it was covered. But the awning snapped to the ground level and so it ended up looking ridiculously short compared to the stage. So I ended up having to put a regular roof on it. And I even tried placing a foundation here instead, but it was a little too close to the building. So there was a bit of issue with, the floors of the foundation and the upper level of the building next door to it kind of snapping together. But now I'm placing the instruments, and so I've got a bass, an electric guitar, and a drum set. And then, of course, like I said, there's a piano that goes inside as well. Now I'm just placing some of these poles here for some lamps and some lanterns to kind of liven up the place. And yeah, it actually looks really cool at night when this courtyard is all lit up. And I will put in a screenshot of that. But right now I'm just kind of placing in these lanterns, and I've never used these lanterns for this particular purpose before, even though I know that's what kind of they were made for. They're all part of the set from Pineapple Forest, and yeah, but I'd never particularly used the lanterns. I've used these like little light bulbs, but the lanterns was a first for me, and so I kind of got a bit crazy with the color schemes. I was just kind of playing around with all the different colors, and then I realized that they all just looked too weird with the colors that I was choosing, and I wanted something a little more toned down. So you can see I just kind of stuck with some greens, blues, reds, and a little bit of yellow. I think there's some orange in there too. And now I'm working on the second building here. And this is kind of the Edwardian inspired build. So I did have a cornice up the top for a long time, and then I kind of took that off because I just I wasn't really vibing with it. But I did want a crown to kind of be up the top with some sort of, interesting looking molding. And so I went with the brick with the initial brick that I placed on the building to the left. I moved that onto this build up the top to give it a nice, kind of crown look. And now adding in some windows. In terms of the upper levels of these buildings, whenever I do community lots that kind of have these big, grand buildings, more or less to kind of create an interesting looking community lot, I do have performance in mind, like the game's performance in mind, and I'm not interested in these buildings being wholly functional. So the upper floors, I don't even do anything with them. Like I place down some floor and some walls, but I don't place any sort of functional objects. There's absolutely no reason for the Sims to go upstairs, so I don't have any issue with leaving them unfurnished. I'm more concerned about, having the builds look somewhat decent, but also, coming into this lot not having any issues with crashing or pink flashing or anything like that. So I do leave the upper levels empty, and I tend to do that in The Sims 3 as well. Like I'll make some kind of big grand community lot, but I only kind of furnish the area of the community lot that I actually know I'm going to play in. And everything else is kind of just left empty. The good thing about The Sims 3 is actually that there are those hidden room markers and the skip level markers, so that, if you do have a room or even an entire floor that you don't intend on using, you can kind of just put in the hidden level marker and it makes the entire room black. And then you can even put the skip level marker on it, so that, when you use you want to switch between floors, it kind of skips that entire floor, skips the empty floor completely, so you don't even see it. But unfortunately, we don't have anything like that in The Sims 2, so I kind of just, leave them empty. Anywho, now I'm working on the Art Deco build, and as you can see, there's a whole heap of footage of me trying to get the initial shell to work. And because I placed a freeze level on it at some point, it was just, it was not coming out. So I kind of got a bit frustrated and then just, took down the entire thing and started again with something a little more subdued. The initial build was super tall, and it was just not working the way I wanted it to. So I went with something much more modest. And again, like with the Midnight Flows building, I'm playing around with some architecture pieces from Buggy Boo's, so adding these kind of pillars to the edge of the building. This one ends up being kind of an unusual mix of brown and white kind of color schemes here, but I did actually see some kind of similar, color schemes for Art Deco builds as well. And just playing around with these architecture pieces. And this build ends up being the bar. So there is a bar on this lot. It's not necessarily, I was just trying to think, with this build, what I've done before is I actually made it a teen hangout. So it was kind of somewhere for teenagers to go, but I wasn't going in that direction for this build. And so I thought, why not place a bar in here instead? Kind of make up for some of the dead space that was going to be in these empty shells. Now, I do have to say, if you've been, following me for a while, I have actually been making Sims content for a long time, but I've tended to mostly be Twitch focused, so I really only ever streamed. I didn't really do much with YouTube, but if you're familiar with the types of styles that I like to build in, then you will know that I love Art Deco, and it's one of my most favorite styles ever, in real life and in The Sims. I just can't kind of escape it. I love Roaring Heights in The Sims 3, and I love all the Art Deco content that came with that game, and I love the fact that it's been converted to The Sims 2, because I do use a lot of the Roaring Heights conversions in The Sims 2. But it's just one of my most favorite architectural styles, interior design styles ever. The patterns, the color schemes, just everything about it is just, I find so elegant, and I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on what it is. It's just so beautiful to me, and it's always so fun for me to make use of that style and actually really go over the top with it. So for the bar area, that is very, very Art Deco. And, if you were paying attention to the community lots that are surrounding this one, you'll notice that a couple of them are already in the Art Deco style. So I have like a full-on Art Deco kind of district in my downtown area. And this is kind of just this building here is an extension of that, I guess. So moving on to the interior of the bar, and I've got this nice kind of geometric wood floor, and I'm trying to find a bar that actually looks, like it fits into the style somehow. Not exactly spoiled for choice when it comes to bars in The Sims 2, unfortunately. I feel like a lot of them either look the same or just look very, very themed. So I tend to go for the ones that are very neutral looking. And yeah, so this is kind of what I chose for the bar area. And of course, I have the bar island and then some cabinets behind it. And then I place a mirror behind the bar, and then I grab some bar stools and some tables as well. But these tables, initially it was kind of looking a little too pub-like. I wanted something a little more formal looking. So, I placed down these tables and chairs initially, but then I go for some couches and coffee tables so that it looks more like a lounge bar rather than a pub. Because I felt like just the kind of the style that I was going for, the wall textures, the floor texture were very upscale and seemed a little too nice to be a pub. And so the next few minutes, I'm just playing around with the layout and final layout of the bar here, and playing with the final look of it. I use these nice black and gold couches, and I believe those are from Life Stories. I think they're Life Stories conversions. I believe the Love Seat is actually an add-on, in that the original conversion from Life Stories is a sofa, but I'm using an add-on here, the add-on Love Seat instead. And this is kind of, where I got the idea of making it more into a lounge bar instead of an actual kind of like a pub, by placing multiple love seats and some tables in between them. I'm pretty sure Sims can't use the far end seats, like they can't route to them, but that's okay, I don't mind. It looks good, and that's all that really matters to me, really. It doesn't have to be completely functional, but there is another set over here where, multiple Sims can kind of sit down and chat if they want to. And yeah, initially I took the rug out because I couldn't quite get it to gel with all the bar tables and bar stools. But then once I kind of placed the love seats and the coffee tables, there was like more of a space for the rug that actually made sense. So I ended up placing it back in. And yeah, just going in with some lights now, and some of these curtains, and they're from Roaring Heights as well. A nice color scheme there. I love these curtains, to be honest. One of my favorite conversions ever. And now I am going on to some plants, of course. Got to have some plants in here, and just other bits and pieces of detail, making sure everything looks cohesive. And yeah, I don't actually really know what to say in this part. I'm just really just doing some detail and some clutter. Like, I'm now adding in some pictures as well to make the walls a bit more interesting to look at. And what's next? More pictures. Okay, cool. These kind of cabinets that I merged into the counters, I really didn't know what to put in them, and I initially left them with the default kind of plates and cups in them, but then I remembered that I had the Pineapple Forest bar set, so I added some more kind of bar objects to those cabinets a bit later on. But now I'm working on the interior of this kind of Edwardian style commercial building, and this really, I have no purpose for the interior of this build at all. So I just kind of filled it with some really basic objects, some sofas, some curtains, some end tables, mirrors, some pictures, and so on. I didn't really have any sort of purpose for it other than to be there for aesthetic purposes. So I wasn't interested on the functionality of anything in here at all, other than it just needed to be some eye candy. If I'm playing in the courtyard, then there's a nice building next to it to look at. But yeah, other than that, the stairs lead up to nowhere, of course, but for realism, I did want to show that if for whatever reason Sims needed to go upstairs, which they never would have any reason to because there's nothing up there, they could get up there. But in terms of the color schemes, I'm just kind of going for some darker woods. It's very similar to how I decorated the goth interior. Um, so, some dark brown, some reddy kind of tones and all that. And now I'm just kind of going around and adding in some speakers as well and some extra detail for the exterior. And now I'm doing some landscaping, so adding some flower beds all around the building of this kind of New Orleans build. And yeah, just kind of playing around with some other bits and pieces. Now I'm doing some floors and walls for the New Orleans build as well, but I'm not quite at the stage where I start furnishing it. I moved back into the courtyard to add in some plants and some planters to make it look more detailed and interesting. I went with a mix of different plants here and different kind of swatches and all that. And then I kind of went a little more uniform with the plants next to the benches here. And now moving on to some planters outside the this end of the community lot. Although kind of where the Art Deco build and the Edwardian commercial build are, I don't really spend much time detailing that because it's on the edge of the lot that isn't functional. So it's not like, Sims are going to be walking up and down there or people are going to be arriving there. So I wasn't really too worried about, having that area of the build super, super detailed because, yeah, I'm not really going to be seeing it that often, I don't think anyway. And yeah, it's moving back to the courtyard, adding in some planters, some hanging plants, and and some lights as well. Because even though there's a ton of lanterns and those light bulbs, those hanging light bulbs, it still ends up being reasonably dark. As you can see here, I've turned the lights on, and you can see it is still a bit dark, so I needed to add a few more lights. Okay, and now I am moving on to, well, eventually, yeah, here we go, the bathrooms. And of course, they are nothing really that special at all. I did realize, though, that one bathroom was significantly larger than the other, which didn't really make sense at all. And, of course, if it was going to be huge, if the second bathroom was going to be huge, I would have had to furnish it and make it, look like that space had some sort of purpose. But I couldn't, logically rationalize in my head why one of those bathrooms was bigger than the other. So I just ended up shrinking it down and just, adding the usual bathroom bits and bobs. So mirrors, soap and hand towels, and of course some lights, although you may not see me place them straight away. Oh no, I do actually, good. But once I was done with the bathrooms, I was like, okay, well, what do I do with this empty space? And for both spaces in this New Orleans build, I was just going to have like seating areas. So you can see I'm kind of putting together a seating area on this end here. And then for the other space, I was kind of, a bit unsure of what to do with it. I was like, okay, do I want another seating area? But then it's kind of like, okay, with 3 different dead spaces that I have in this community lot, I've just turned them all into seating areas. So I was started thinking more about what I could actually do with that space. And so I thought, okay, what have I got in the build at the moment? I've got, some food spaces. I've got like a little band set up. There's some arcade games as well. There's a bar. What can I do with the space? And so, I thought, okay, well, if this is like a New Orleans inspired build, and, New Orleans is kind of associated with jazz and music. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll carry on that theme and have like a little space for, a piano and almost like a little concert area. Very, very small, of course, but I feel like it was probably the best use of space that I could do that kind of made sense in this build. So I just plonked in a piano and some seating and some lights, and it all pretty much came together on its own really, really quickly. And by the end of it, I was actually super pleased with how it came out. It looks like it actually has a decent purpose. It's not just a random place for Sims to go in and sit. So yeah, I was quite pleased with how it turned out in the end. So finishing up the final details of the build, adding in some planters around the balconies that overlook the quote-unquote night market, and here are some screenshots. Now, I didn't really take many before and after pics because the interior's completely changed. There's a couple of befores of the exterior. But anywho, I am completely exhausted after this commentary, so I will leave you to look over the rest of these screenshots. I will say thanks so much for watching. Of course, it was a pleasure to put these speed builds together for you. Take care, and I will talk to you soon.